Good afternoon, Louisiana, and welcome to At the Book for Thursday, July the 21st. Zach Ewing, along with Spencer the Guru Urquhart, Jim Derry, and for the final time, our producer, Devin Jackson, who is leaving us on Saturday, I believe is his last day. So this is his last At the Book, his last Bayou Bets. And Devin, let me just say it up front, man. We are going to miss the hell out of you.
Yeah, appreciate it. It's been, I've been kind of dreading this all day. I love doing the show, and to think this is the last one. It's a hard realization, but definitely appreciate you guys and making this fun every week. I mean, I think the thing that makes this great is that not everyone comes in with the same opinions, and everyone kind of has their own mindset and will stand on it. So I think that's the best part of this show for sure.
And just so we're clear, Devin is going on to bigger and better things. So it's not like we're forcing him out the door. This is a happy thing, at least a bittersweet thing from our perspective. So you will see Devin in the sports betting space moving forward. So we're happy for that. As for today, we do want to mention to you that At the Book is brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook. If you are a new user, you can get a $1,500 free bet or $1,500 risk-free bet, I should say, by signing up for the Caesars Sportsbook. Go to NOLA.com/Caesars today for that, and use promo code NOLA15. Or like I said, if you go to NOLA.com/Caesars, that promo code is automatically loaded up for you. And I think Uncle Big Nick echoes what we say. Best of luck to Devin, and we're going to have a little bit more fun with him today. We'll talk a little NFL. We're going through the NFC East at bet.nola.com this week, so we're going to talk some of that. We'll wrap that up on Monday and then move on to the AFC West. Is that right, Jim?
AFC West is next week.
AFC West next week, and we're working our way to the season with all 8 divisions, one per week. We'll end with the NFC South, of course, the Saints and the Bucs, Falcons and Panthers the week before week 1. So that's what we have in store for you in the preseason. We'll also kind of do a reset of Major League Baseball as the All-Star break now over. Astros just had a walk-off win over the Yankees in the first half of a doubleheader today to get the second half started. And so we'll kind of reset the baseball landscape from an odds perspective as well. Encourage you all to leave your comments, leave your questions. We will get to them. We want this to be as interactive as possible. So with that said, let's get going. Jim, what have you learned about the NFC East doing your win total victories this week, or win total post this week?
I've learned that I was right in the newsletter this morning that you would shed a tear. You've already shed one, and you'll have a couple more before this show is over. That has nothing to do with the NFC East, but I thought I would throw that in there before we started commenting. By the way, I don't think we do enough promotion about our newsletters. I think that our viewers out there, Zach, I think that this whole group puts together a really good newsletter each night. We are dark on Tuesday nights, but if you have not subscribed for the newsletter, go out there and do that. You can do that on bet.nola.com. Check that out because I think they are all informative. We all do a good job at putting links together and things that people may have missed. To make sure to check that out. Speaking of which, if you've missed any of the NFC East, you can go back and check it out. We've been doing that all week long. Today, we previewed the Philadelphia Eagles and what we thought, and Spencer had his fantasy take that came out at 3 o'clock this afternoon on the Eagles. Tomorrow, we'll do the Washington Commanders and wrap it up. The NFC East. It's hard to believe that we're a quarter. The first quarter is over for our football previews, and we can go back. NFC West will come up week after next. We're going AFC West next. NFC West will be coming up week after that. I'm sure Uncle Big Nick wants to know what we think about the San Francisco 49ers, and I'm not giving out any spoiler alerts. But it's been a fun thing to do. I don't think I've ever gone this in depth with these previews, and you do learn a whole lot about each team more than maybe you would normally learn, especially this early in the season. Usually I'm trying to get into fantasy by now, but going through each team and picking through them with a fine-tooth comb and really looking at schedules is how we determine whether we think an over under is if there's any value there. And so far, I've surprised myself with a couple of these things. We talked about the Giants. I think the Giants are the biggest surprise so far, where they're over under 7. Their division total at plus 800. Adam Chernoff of Covers.com, who's coming on each show with me, we're both in agreement that the Giants could be the best value on the board as with division odds
Hold
of
off
plus 800.
on too much. We are going to go through each team individually here in the East, so I don't want to give away too much, Jim.
I'm just trying to
yeah.
show what kind of things we're doing. But yeah, Zach, I know that we're going to do that. But it's been fun so far. I've enjoyed it, and I've really enjoyed Spencer's fantasy previews.
Yeah, and that's where I was going next. Is like I think it's interesting the more in depth you go, and I'm doing college football conference previews, and you learn the same thing. You think you have one idea about what kind of cursorily what you think about a team, but then as you really start to do the research, you think, I think I was wrong about that. I think I actually like this better, or I don't like that as much. And I imagine, Spencer, it's the same way from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, sometimes you're looking at it and it's just like, for example, the Giants. I didn't realize just how bad the Giants were last year until I really started deep diving. I was like, man, they were just horrendous, man, in every category. So it's like, from a fantasy standpoint, you can't go get too reactionary with that. You got to realize, it's a new coach there, and that's another big key to it is all the off-season movement, man. Like the NFC East is a perfect example of that. I mean, the Cowboys lost Amari Cooper, the Eagles gained A.J. Brown, the Commanders gained Carson Wentz, Giants coach Brian Dable. So there's just so much movement throughout the NFL, and this offseason was a wild one as far as that more movement than usual. So it's been it's all about evaluating that and then adjusting the projections accordingly, because you don't want to just look at last year's numbers. You got to factor in all of the new additions, moving parts and pieces, and how it's going to affect their respective offenses.
Absolutely. So let's take a look at training camps beginning. Actually, I think technically began yesterday. The Raiders were the first team to have veterans report. Most teams start Monday or Tuesday with their veterans. The Saints are Tuesday. But I do believe by Tuesday the 26th, all 32 teams will have all their players, all healthy players anyway, out there. So here are your Super Bowl odds. And we've looked at these a few times throughout the offseason. I wanted to take a little bit of a different tack today. And Devin, we'll start with you. If you had to choose, will the Super Bowl champion come from one of those teams on those first 7 lines, or will they come from the notable list or below?
I think the Super Bowl champion come from the first 7 lines. I like the Bills to win it all. I just think they have kind of gone through that process of figuring out how to win. Obviously the emergence of Josh Allen, but they needed to beef up their defense, and they went out and got Von Miller, and they have some young guys across all 3 levels of the field, and they continue to add to a team that's already well built. So I think the champion comes from the first 7 lines here for next season at least.
And I think that the odds are probably in favor of those first 7 lines, because you get what that looks like 10 teams. So you're getting the top 10 teams there in that list. Jim, what about you? I mean, last year the Bengals would not have been anywhere near the top 10 teams in the odds. And they didn't win it. They came close. Anybody down there below the Ravens that you think could cast that bet if you say, I think it'll be a long shot?
No, I think that I think the vast odds are for you if you have if you take the top 7 lines and all the teams that are in there. You're talking about 10 teams. The top 10 teams. It's very unlikely that you're going to get someone below there. But if you did go down there, and I'm telling you right now, if you're looking for a long shot like the Bengals last year, and we're going to get to it in a minute, but I'm telling you, the Giants are going to be so much better this year. And part of it is the schedule. And again, when we start talking about who's going to do what this year and whether you're trying to predict over-unders and whether teams are going to be whatever, but the New York Giants have one of the easiest schedules. They're in the 3rd easiest schedule in the NFL. And the whole NFC East does, which is another reason why I like Dallas as well. So when you start talking about that and you're looking at schedules, it's one reason why I don't like the Bills. The Bills last year had one of the easiest schedules in the NFL. This year they have one of the toughest. So I will not be touching the Bills at plus 650. That's, to me, there's no value there. even if you think they're going to win it, I wouldn't play it. I mean, there's just not enough value. So, but if you're looking for a long shot, I like a team like the Giants. I've already talked about, even though the Saints have a tough schedule, we're going to get to them way later on. And we're going to be talking about them throughout the next month and a half, obviously. But there are a few teams that I do like. I like the Raiders. We're going to get to them next week. So there are some surprise teams that I think that can make it. But if you're just talking about the top 10 on there, obviously the odds favor that one of those 10 teams on those 7 lines is going to be the Super Bowl champion. And honestly, I think we talked about it, Zach. You're getting great value. We'll get to the Rams soon enough. But to me, there's good value in the Rams. There's good value in the Cowboys. So even with those top 10, those 7 lines, there's still a couple teams, in my opinion, that have value there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I've been beating the Ravens drum all offseason, and their price has come down. It's interesting as you look at it, though. And by the way, we just had some news come out from Saints camp as they prepare to have their veterans report. Both Michael Thomas and Marcus Davenport on the PUP list, on the physically unable to perform list. Not a huge surprise. I think maybe some were hopeful that Thomas at least would shed that at some point. During training camp, he can be let off that list at any time. So it's really just a matter of whenever he's ready. And the hope is that he'll be ready in time, I think, to at least play in a preseason game would be the hope. So we'll see what happens. But right now, both Thomas and Davenport on that PUP list. Spencer, we'll go to you. Any futures that you've come across? I know we've talked about it all offseason, but just as you've done some research here in the last couple of weeks that have caught your eye.
Yeah, a couple teams that I kind of like as far as like their division for sure, because they're both real long shots as far as the Super Bowl. And the NFC, I kind of like the Vikings to possibly take the NFC North. I mean, I know Green Bay's had a stranglehold on that division there now for a while, but I'm not really feeling Green Bay. I mean, with Aaron Rodgers losing Devontae Adams, I don't think their offense will be quite as explosive. Their defense is okay, but it's not elite to where I think the Vikings, with the first-year head coach and Kevin O'Connell, if they can take a step forward offensively, as long as their defense remains pretty good, like I think they'll give Green Bay a run because I feel like their draft was pretty well, and they've got elite playmakers on offense there with Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson. And in my AFC team, that y'all might think I'm crazy for this, but the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I know it's a tough division in the AFC North, but I feel like they're getting slept on heavily because their defense is still near the top 10. I feel like they still got a great defense there with TJ Watt leading the way. And I don't think their offense is going to be as bad as people are thinking. If anything, like Mitchell Trubisky or Kenny Pickett, whoever wins that job, will probably be an upgrade over last year's version of Ben Roethlisberger, who could barely push the ball 10 yards down the field. So I feel like as long as their offense is somewhat decent, which I think it will be, they might be able to kind of do like they did last year and sneak into the playoffs. And, with their defense, you never know.
Now, Zach, Can I interject real quick? Not that it really matters, and we haven't gotten that far yet with our previews. I haven't started, but both of those teams you talk about on the periphery. So my opinion may change when I go through this and go through their schedule and really get into the meat of those teams. But both of those teams Spencer mentioned, I think right now are great bargains. I love Minnesota. I'm the same way. I don't like Green Bay at all this year. I may see something different when I start going through it, and I may feel a little bit differently, but I think Minnesota is going to be up there with the Giants with one of the bargains in this whole thing. And I also think that Pittsburgh, that's a toss-up division again. And I agree with Spencer that if you get anything out of Mitchell Trubisky or Kenny Pickett, and I think this can be a breakout year for Najee Harris. I really do. So Pittsburgh could be another great value. I understand the quarterback position, but man, that's a team that people are sleeping on, and you just can't sleep on the Steelers, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the Steelers have collected a couple of big bets at Caesar Sportsbooks and elsewhere. So there are some bettors who throw around serious money.
Have money on it
already. Who are with you on that. By the way, drop your long shot in the comments. Tell us who you think is worth the odds for a Super Bowl bet or a division bet or whatever it is. And we're going to kind of go deeper into the NFC East here. This is how we'll set this up, because our posts are coming out Tuesday through Friday, one each day. So we'll do the first 3 teams for a division, the 3 posts that Jim has published on our Thursday show. And then on our Monday show, we'll do the last team, which in this case is the Washington Commanders, and look at the division odds as a whole. And then if you want to go more in depth, you can look at Jim's videos with Adam Chernoff every day as we go. And those are Tuesday through Friday. Nick says Jaguars. I'm not sure if you're joking or not, but I don't hate that, just simply because I think they had the Urban Meyer stank all over them so badly last year.
Division sucks, so maybe.
Like, they still have talent. They're going to get Travis Etienne back healthy. I don't know. I don't know if I'd put a lot of money on the Jaguars, but I do think there's a little bit of a bounce back possibility there. But let's dig into the NFC East. And let's talk to all 3 of you here. And Jim, we'll start with you since you did the videos. We'll start with the Dallas Cowboys, who you dug into on Tuesday on bet.nola.com. This is clearly your division favorite, plus 115. They're a heavy favorite to make the playoffs at minus 280, and the win total all the way up there at 10.5.
Yeah, one thing about the Dallas Cowboys, it's interesting because we've done 8 teams now, and the reason why I have Adam on, besides the fact that he's the most knowledgeable handicapper that I've ever talked to extensively, it's funny because Dallas is the only team that we've disagreed on so far. So take my words with a grain of salt. Dallas is the division favorite, and rightfully so. I mean, I think they have another really solid year, and they have tied for the easiest schedule in the NFL. All those things make for a bright future for Dallas. They're over under at 10.5. I don't understand why it's plus 125. Again, Adam doesn't like it. He says stay away from it. But I think you're getting really good odds to win the Super Bowl at 18-1 because if they can make some noise with this schedule and somehow get like a 1 or a 2 seed and get themselves a nice draw into the playoffs, they could easily be the team that comes out of the NFC, because to me, the NFC is a crapshoot anyway. I don't think there's any dominant team in the NFC. I think the Rams are probably still the best team in the NFC. That doesn't mean they're the best team, the best chance to make the Super Bowl. And I think you're getting a really good value here. I like the Cowboys in every way.
Yeah, I think the Cowboys have 3 of their first 5 games against playoff teams from last year. They play the Bucs and the Bengals and the Rams in those first 5 games. So pretty tough early, but then those last 12 games, only 2 games against playoff teams from last year. So quite a big difference there. Actually, I think I'm miscounting the Eagles because the Eagles didn't make the playoffs last year.
Their toughest part of their schedule is certainly the first 6: Tampa Bay, Cincinnati, at the Giants, Washington, those 2 aren't hard, but then at the Rams and at Philly, and then it gets. They have some spots where it's super easy, and I think they're going to rack up on those spots.
Yeah. Devin, your take on the Cowboys. Are you buying or selling the Dallas Cowboys?
I'm going to disagree here. Me and Spencer actually talked about this earlier. I'm selling the Cowboys. And the reason why I think they'll still probably win the division, but I just don't see them advancing far in the playoffs. And it has a lot to do with the coaching. Mike McCarthy as their head coach just does not move the needle for me. And I worry about when, you get to the playoffs and time management and being able to manage the roster. I don't think they got much better defensively. Obviously they had Micah Parsons, the reigning rookie of the year. Trayvon Diggs, who led the league in interceptions last year, but I didn't see a lot of moves they made in the offseason and through the draft that led me to believe that their defense will be any better than they were last year. And once again, when it comes down to the crunch time moments and what they do with Mike McCarthy as a head coach, I just worry about how reliable they'll be in those tight games. So for me, I think the Cowboys are still a good bet to win the NFC East, but I don't know in terms of Super Bowl and making it far in the playoffs. I just don't see that with them just yet.
Spencer, you want to expound on that?
Yeah, I feel I'm probably just going to agree with what Devin said because I feel like he's hit the nail on the head with the McCarthy thing. I don't think they're going to get over the hump with him as their head coach. He's made too many blunders, game management blunders in big situations. And then with Dak Prescott, he'll have his games where he puts up some great numbers. He's a really good fantasy quarterback, but when it comes to those playoff moments, he's yet to really show that he's got that big game mentality in him to really put the team on his back. So we'll have to see, but I'm not really feeling Dallas. And another thing they've got to worry about is Philadelphia being on the rise. I'm sure we'll get to them here in a little bit, but AJ Brown, they're in Philly. I think they're a real threat to take that division.
I disagree with you on Philly, and we will get to that in a minute, but I agree with you guys on the Cowboys. Listen, 2 words, Mike McCarthy. Can't be trusted. I don't mind Dallas to win the division. I'm not sure. I'm staying away because I don't think plus 115 is enough. But I don't like the over 10.5, and I don't like to go deep in the Super Bowl or win the NFC or anything. I think back to that playoff game against San Francisco last year where they just, tripped over their own 2 feet, and some other games early in the season where they just never seem to be quite the sum of their parts. And maybe that changes this year. But I don't think I want to be the one with a stake in that game. So that's where I'm at on the Cowboys. Then on Wednesday, Jim, you went on and talked some New York Giants, and I know we've already talked quite a bit about them, but the one I kind of like the most on here is either over the 7 on the win total or a plus 250 to make the playoffs. I mean, that you're getting quite a bit of juice there. And in the NFC, there is a pretty big margin for error there where a 9-8 team probably gets in.
Real quick, and I don't want to rehash this, but I will say this about the Cowboys. It's hard to not let human bias not get in on when you're talking about the Cowboys, because generally, and this is one thing I found over and over again, generally you either love the Cowboys or you hate them. There is no in between. And when you're talking about, it's hard to let personal feelings get out of when you're making bets. And so if you dislike the Cowboys and put a couple things here on certain players and personnel, but again, go through that schedule and then tell me again what you think. But that's neither here nor there. The Giants, one thing I love about the Giants is you want to talk about schedules, and their schedule just isn't the 29th toughest in the NFL, which means it's super easy. But they have a stretch early in the season where they can really get some things rolling. If they can find a way to beat Dallas in the 3rd week of the season, they could legitimately be 3-1 when they play Green Bay in London. They have a stretch of games, 5 games where they don't have to play in someone else's home stadium. 5 games in a row. One of them is in London, so that it's on a neutral site. It's like Carolina, Dallas, and Chicago at home, 3 games in a row. Go to London to play Green Bay, and then play Baltimore at home. Then they go to Jacksonville and to Seattle. So they have a great stretch. I love their over win total, but even more, you guys kind of talked about it. To me, I wouldn't touch the Cowboys division chances at plus 115. I don't think there's any value there. I do like their over. But where I think there's real value for the Giants, again, chances to win the NFC East. You'll hear what I think about the Eagles in just a minute. But to me, 8-1 is an absurd number. There is no way this team should be 8-1 to win the division. It's solely on what they did last year. Brian Daboll is going to make a huge difference when it comes to Daniel Jones, this offensive line, and I believe Saquon Barkley.
Brian Daboll and also Mike Kafka, the new offensive coordinator who came from Kansas City from Andy Reid's offense. Now, I'm not saying Daniel Jones is Patrick Mahomes, Spencer, but I do think that a new coaching staff can take talented players and make a difference. And look, Saquon Barkley, we know has talent. If he can stay healthy, Daniel Jones has shown flashes. They've got some receivers in Kadarius Toney, and I'm going to blank on the rookie's name they drafted this year, but another guy who
Wandale Robinson from Kentucky.
Wandale Robinson from Kentucky. Yeah, they can do some things in that offense if they can get it humming.
Yeah, it's an interesting offense. I definitely like Saquon to bounce back. This is a make or break year for Saquon Barkley. His contract year, 5th year, got to get it done because other than his rookie year, he's yet to have a full season of elite production. So he's going to need to have a big year this year if he wants to get paid. And as for Daniel Jones, that's where I get concerned. I mean, I know Daboll coached up Josh Allen, but and then the OC coming over from the Chiefs, but I don't think their magic's going to turn Daniel Jones into Mahomes or Josh Allen. I just don't see it. I think he'll be okay, like in 2 quarterback fantasy leagues, because he runs a little bit too, Jones. So I mean, he'll have some weeks where he's valuable in those formats, but I don't know. For overall, I feel like he's going to be too inconsistent. And as for the team as a whole, they're just very injury prone on offense. Like Sterling Shepard and Kenny Golladay, the veteran receivers, they're always injured. Tony missed a big chunk of last year, and then we know Saquon's injury history. So it's just tough for me to trust them offensively as far as their health. Haven't dove too deep as far as their defense, but if they can take a step forward defensively, they could maybe be a sleeper team, especially if they can get a full season out of Saquon.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think anybody is saying Daniel Jones will become Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, but if he could become Ryan Tannehill, I mean, if he could become Ryan Tannehill or Jameis Winston, or a mid-tier quarterback, let's say, that could go a long way in Devin, what is honestly a pretty weak division.
Yeah, there's really, I would say there's really no, particular team that stands out above the rest. I mean, each team I feel like has their deficiencies, but I think the thing with the Giants is it's really going to come down to how quickly can Daniel Jones learn how to play efficient football. Because I don't think he's a bad quarterback, but the turnovers are what kill the team. Him trying to do too much, not having time protection. I mean, they spent premium draft capital on upgrading the offensive line, so now they have Andrew Thomas and Evan Neal at their tackles. So that makes you feel good about. Yeah, it makes you feel good about the future at the very least and what it could look like. So I think with the Giants, I think there's reason to have high expectations for them. I'm gonna keep them a little bit low because I know sometimes it takes 4 or 5 weeks to really get going and understand the offensive system and get into a rhythm. So I would say if the division is within play by week 12 or 13, you can see the Giants really start to turn it on and maybe be a late pusher for the playoffs or one of those last wild card spots. So I do like their chances not to win the division, but I think their value is to make the playoffs. I think I would take that value.
I think for beginning bettors out there, one thing you've got to hear is that the four of us are not saying the New York Giants are going to win the NFC East. We're not predicting that necessarily.
Adam Chernoff did.
Well, okay. I mean, I'm not, and I guess what we're saying is that at 8-1, that there's just tremendous value there. That if you could play this season out 8 times, which of course we can't, but if you could, they would win it more than once. And so that's what we're saying is that you're getting some value at that 8-1. You're getting some value at plus 250 to make the playoffs. I don't love the over 7 on the win total just because I think you end up pushing half the time at like a 7-11. But I think there's some value there. So that's what we're saying is we're saying there's value there. The market has undervalued the Giants, not necessarily that we're all predicting them to win. It does say a lot though, Jim, that Adam picked them because he's a Jets fan. So he's got to swallow hard to pick the Giants.
It was by far his strongest play of the 8 teams that we've gone through so far, and it was also by far our strongest agreement of the 8 teams. We both really like the Giants, and again, it's easy to look back on last year, but not only did Daniel Jones struggle, but he was injured for a lot of the year, and they had no names quarterback in the team. So you can't just look at what you saw last year. It's the reason why they went into last year with an over-under of 8.5 because it looked like they were ready to take that next step, and they didn't. So one thing I'll say when you're going through and making your decisions on what not only we talk about looking at the schedule and looking at what upgrades they made, but you just can't look at last year. Last year only matters a little bit. It really does. I mean, we saw with the Bengals last year, and obviously Joe Burrow missed a lot of 2020 with that gruesome injury, but they took that next step. There is going to be a team or two that comes out of nowhere and stunk last year and is going to be really good this year. And conversely, there's going to be a team or two that was really good last year that's going to stink this year. It happens every year. And so the Giants are one of my 1 or 2 or maybe 3 teams that I think is going to take a huge leap. And the fact that Adam Chernoff agrees with me, it's also a reason why when he disagrees with me, I'm staying away. I probably won't put much on the Cowboys.
Well, it's interesting you say that, Jim, because one of the teams that I'm further down on than most people this preseason that I've heard, and I'm interested to get your take and Adam's take because I haven't actually listened to today's video yet. But the Philadelphia Eagles, who you wrote about today, I'm not real high on this team. I know they made the playoffs last year. I don't look at this team and, for instance, their odds to make the playoffs are better than the Saints. Their win total is higher than the Saints. Are they a better team than the Saints? I don't think I see that.
I think the problem with the Eagles is the jury is out on Jalen Hurts, and not only that, I am not a fan. You might disagree with this, but I am not a fan of Nick Sirianni at all. I don't think his play calling was in, and that's one thing that Adam and I both agreed on. Here's the deal with the Eagles: whether you like them or whether you don't like them, there's no value of any worth anywhere on this board. You certainly can't bet the over 9 at -145. You just can't. I mean, because I think at best they're about the same as they were last year. I know A.J. Brown coming in is going to make a major difference, well, supposedly. But is Jalen Hurts going to be able to get the ball to him on a regular basis? I mean, just look at the numbers from last year. One thing you can look at last year and see that Jalen Hurts rushed for 750 yards. I mean, a lot of his offense is coming from his feet. So how much of a difference is A.J. Brown going to make? I'm not sure. But there is no value anywhere in the Eagles. I'm not touching them. I'm not betting on them. I'm not betting against them. I'm staying away, and Adam and I pretty much agreed on that.
I don't know that I will either. I will say the one spot of a little value I would say is under 9 on the wins at +120.
Yeah, I agree.
I can see them going 8 and 9 easily. But Spencer, you mentioned, you kind of alluded to the fact that you like Philly this year.
Yeah, I think Philly could surprise people, because I think Jalen Hurts is somebody. I know he's not a great passer, but I think with A.J. Brown there, that's going to really allow him to take that next step as a passer, where he can at least be, kind of like Lamar Jackson the past couple of years. He's still not a great passer, but he's a lot better than when he first came into the league. So I'm thinking something similar could be in store for Hurts now that he's got two very strong weapons there with A.J. and Devontae Smith and in Dallas Goedert. So he's getting into the running game pretty solid there with Miles Sanders and, of course, Hurts himself running. So I think the offense won't be an issue. They actually, with Sirianni, I'm pretty sure last year Sirianni relinquished play calling duties to their OC. And I think that's going to continue into this season. So and then their defense is pretty solid to where I think they'll be right up there with Dallas. And I mean, it's not a great value because I feel like a lot of people are kind of thinking that too, but like, I would probably rather play them than play Dallas as far as to win the NFC East.
Guys, the problem is, and one thing Spencer said, that they're not going to be a surprise. Bettors are all over the Eagles. Of all the 4 teams in this division, there are more bets being placed on the Eagles, positive numbers, than any other team in this division. So they're not going to be a surprise, hence why you're not getting a value in their over-under win total. It's probably going to go to 9.5 before the season starts is my guess. But again, that's why there's no value in either way. It's probably just a stay away. But I hear what Spencer's saying. Some of the things he say certainly could make a difference. I just don't think any of us know, kind of what you said, Zach.
Devin, for the last time, break a tie, man. Where do you come down on the Eagles?
Yeah, for me, I'm not touching the Eagles because I just feel like the quarterback position is so volatile with them. Like when things are going well, they're able to run the football. Jalen Hurts looks like a completely different quarterback, but are they going to put an emphasis on the run game? Are they going to be able to do it effectively? Is Miles Sanders going to be healthy? I think there's a lot of questions really outside of, just is Jalen Hurts going to play well and take that next step? Like there really hasn't been any evidence you can point to that says, Jalen Hurts is going to be a, top 10 or top 15 passer in the NFL. So I just worry that, for Eagles and bettors on the Eagles, like their defense, I think is going to be really good and it's going to be the reason they make the playoffs. But I'm just not confident that they're going to be incrementally better offensively. So for me, I'm staying away from the Eagles just because I still feel like there's question marks surrounding the team still, despite what they were able to do and able to get A.J. Brown. Because, like, even if you do get, that number one receiver, they've spent draft capital over the last couple seasons on receiver and poured a lot of resources into and it's really not coming down to the receivers they have, because they have plenty of talent in the room. It's, can they get it to them? And Hurts hasn't shown the ability to do at a consistent level, and I don't think it's all of a sudden going to change, once A.J. Brown comes in the building.
Zach, real quick, I want to say to Spencer probably more than anything, one thing that scares the hell out of me is that my main fantasy league, I have Jalen Hurts as my quarterback, and there are weeks where he literally carries you. He'll score more points than any other player in the league, and then the next week he puts up a goose egg. And that's the scariest thing about Jalen Hurts. I don't think that that's going to change, and that's one part of fantasy football that kind of does relate to real football, because he's great one week, and if you're the opponent, you don't want to play him that week. But if he stinks, man, he can bomb everybody. He can bomb the Eagles and bomb your fantasy team all at the same time.
Yeah, I'm standing on Hurts, man. I feel like I'm going to have a good amount of Jalen Hurts shares in fantasy this year. So, I mean, yeah, I know it might be a little bumpy at times, but I think overall
he'll be on my team again. I'll be riding the Hurts train.
I mean, I think the other thing there is that he starts to get the Lamar Jackson treatment at some point, where defenses are going to say, we've got to take this guy away, or at least take his legs away and make him beat us with his arm. And I think Lamar Jackson is starting to learn how to do that. Kyler Murray has kind of started to learn how to do that. Of course, he got his big contract extension today. Can Jalen Hurts take that step?
Paid.
Yeah, Kyler Murray got paid.
Kyler Murray's better than both of those guys.
But I mean, that's sort of the question to me. And we mentioned turnovers. Running quarterbacks tend to turn the ball over more often, and the Eagles didn't really have that last year. They recovered a lot of the fumbles that they had, and that, as we know, is kind of a turnaround thing. So, look, the NFC East to me is, you guys have mentioned question marks. It's full of question marks, and that's why I like a team like the Giants that's 8-1 versus taking less than 2-1 on Philly or Dallas, because do those teams have a leg up? Sure, they do, but they also have tougher schedules, and I don't think the odds show that they should have that much of a leg up. But anyway, we will finish up the NFC East on Monday's edition of Bayou Bets. We'll talk about the Washington Commanders, which that video comes out tomorrow morning with Jim and Adam Chernoff. And we will also look at the odds as a whole for the NFC East and just kind of recap it. So that's what we're doing. And then next week, getting into the AFC West, we'll do NFC West, then we'll do the 2 North divisions, and we'll finish up with the 2 South divisions. So as we get closer, and the preseason will start during that process too. So it'll be a lot of fun. You are watching you're watching At the Book on bet.NOLA.com here on this Thursday afternoon. And before we go, we did want to take a minute to kind of reset the Major League Baseball season and what the odds look like there, with the second half starting this afternoon. The Astros and Yankees play a high-profile doubleheader today. The Astros won the first game 3-2 on a little walk-off infield single in the bottom of the 9th inning. They play again this evening in about an hour. And then it's off, man. And then with Dodgers and Giants play tonight, and we've got baseball every day between now and October. So it'll be a lot of fun. And in the meantime, we'll take a look at some World Series odds as we begin the second half. And you actually have co-favorites right now at Caesars Sportsbook. The Yankees and Dodgers both 4-1. The Astros right behind them at plus 450. Interesting thing about the Astros, Devin, is that Mattress Mac, who I saw in New Jersey last week, he was asking to see if he could get a couple million more on the Astros at 6-1. And I saw the headline. He actually, I believe it was with Barstool Sportsbook, was able to get plus 533. Caesars they're not moving those odds unless the Astros go on a long losing streak, because they've got enough liability with Mattress Mac right now.
Yeah. The Astros are trending in the right direction. Yordan Alvarez is having a fantastic season for them, and beating the Yankees today is a good way to start off the second half of the season. So very interested to see kind of how this all plays out. I think pretty much at the top there, what you see is probably what's going to kind of remain throughout. I think each team is kind of shown that they're legitimate title contenders. A team I will watch, though, down the list, Atlanta Braves is steadily moving up and getting back on the right track, winning. But some of those other teams down there as well, like the Padres we talked about before the All-Star break. They're going to get Fernando Tatis at some point back and could continue to move up the list as well. But the Astros, Yankees, and Dodgers seem to have the 1, 2, 3 spots locked in pretty much throughout the rest of the season, unless they have a major collapse.
It's interesting, Jim. Obviously, there's a cutoff there after the Braves. You go from 9-1 to 18-1. The top 4 teams on that list would, if the season ended today, they would get the 2 byes in each league's playoffs. But the Braves are right on the Mets' tail. That's why they're kind of included in that group. If we exclude those 5, so now you're looking at probable either wild card teams or teams that might win their division but would still have to play in the first round. Who can make that postseason run? Who has the pitching to win these short series?
We talked about it Monday, and I feel the same way. I think, and there's one team that's not on this list. I mean, I think it's worth putting a little something on all 4 other teams in the AL East not named the New York Yankees, because there's certainly value. I've got a ticket on the Blue Jays, and I don't have a price that's that good. I think I got them at 13 or 14-1 before the season started. And I think Rays, Red Sox, Orioles, you're talking about at least 2 of those teams are probably going to make the playoffs, maybe 3 of them. It's a possibility. So, I mean, you're getting good value. And if they go on a run, baseball is also a game where more times than not, you get a team. It's kind of like almost like college basketball, where if they get on a streak, in college baseball, if they get on a streak and they're playing hot at the right time, I think any of those teams could make a run. I really like the Rays if I had to pick one at 35-1. I think is a great value, because I think there's an excellent chance they're going to make the playoffs. And they've already shown they can beat the Yankees, and they've already shown their resiliency when they get to October.
Spencer the Guru, your value on this board?
Yeah, I'll have to stick with the Blue Jays and Rays, like I said on the last show. I think they're both good values there because they've got pitching. They both got the pitching, I think, to potentially make that push. And also the Padres I like to throw in too, because they feel like their rotation's a little bit slept on, and they Tatis coming back. So yeah, I would say if you're gonna take some futures right now, try to take a chance on ones like that. You don't want to go too far down the board, but you also, I feel like you're not getting any value with the favorites there with the Dodgers, Yankees, or Astros. Because as we all know with baseball, a lot of times a team we don't expect ends up winning it.
Yeah, I think Dodgers, Yankees, Astros, at this point, if you like them, you're better off waiting to the postseason and betting individual series or even individual games. Because look, it even when you get the bye, it's still a long. You got to win a best-of-5 series, then a best-of-7 series, and then the World Series. And there's just a lot of roadblocks, even for a good team, as we saw last year. Like the Braves were nowhere near the top of the odds board last year at this time. In fact, the smart money had them missing the playoffs at this time last year, but they got on a roll, won the division, kind of let the Dodgers and Giants tire each other out, and then took advantage and made it to the World Series and outlasted the Astros. So that's how it happened. Division races kind of broke them down here with anybody who was even close. I think the one team that's 60-1 or below that I did not include on here was Boston. They're also 60-1 just because it didn't fit. Yankees a huge favorite. Astros a huge favorite. Dodgers a pretty big favorite. Other than that, you got 3 good races in the other divisions.
My favorite is, and I don't usually like favorites as my favorite, pardon the whatever, but I think Milwaukee is a near lock to win the National League Central. Since St. Louis just doesn't have enough, I don't think they got enough firepower with their bats and Goldschmidt and Arenado, but I just don't think.
Gotta look at Spencer's face.
I'm not trying to be funny with this at all. And trust me, I'd much rather the Cardinals win the Central than the Brewers. The Brewers are up there as one of my least favorite teams in sports, but I don't see how they're not going to win that division. I think their pitching is way too good to not win it. And honestly, they could be a threat in October as well.
Yeah, well, their bullpen, though, has been terrible lately.
It has been.
Josh
Hader's been terrible.
Josh Hader, if he can't get back on track, I think there's value to be had with the Cardinals. I mean, the Cardinals right now, the pitching's banged up, but I think there's a good chance the Cards make a trade deadline addition.
I'm not a fan of their bullpen either, to be honest.
Yeah, to get Ryan Helsley, though, the closer's a stud, so they're going to have to make some trade deadline additions to beef up the pitching. But once they do that, though, there won't be any more value with the Cardinals. So if you're going to bet them, I'd say bet them now. And another one I like is the Cleveland Guardians to potentially win the AL Central. I feel like there's value there. because they've got pitching. I mean, Shane Bieber's still a really good pitcher, and they've Tristan McKenzie's having a nice year. They've got a lot of young bats that could maybe make some noise. And I mean, the White Sox and Twins, neither of them look that great.
I don't see a ton of that. Like I just don't see. Maybe the Braves at plus 150 is my bet on this board.
Braves are a good one
The
too.
Cardinals,
Yeah.
I could see the Cardinals passing the Brewers. I think they ought to be more like plus 200 though. I don't like the 150 price. The one thing I'll say about the Cardinals or any of the teams in this list, I mean, if you can predict where you think Juan Soto might end up, that could flip one of these races, especially if it's a team like the Cardinals that's only a couple of games out. I don't know. It's nice. I don't know how you predict that at this point.
He could literally go anywhere. He's such a young talent. It's who can pay him. And Juan Soto did not necessarily go into a team that's going to be in contention. I mean, we've seen deals made here and there where to get a chance to get a guy long term, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he goes to a mediocre team that's not really in contention with the chance to sign him long term.
I don't see Soto. I don't. Go ahead.
I was going to say the only thing that I'll say about Soto is that yes, you'd love to sign him long term, but depending on what the asking price is, which we know it's going to be high, but if it's not astronomically high, you are, even if you aren't sure you can sign him long term, you're getting him for 3 playoff runs. He's got 2 more years of team control after this, so you get the rest of the season plus 2 more. And most of the teams who I think it was Bob Nightingale of USA Today reported have reached out. They are playoff teams. It's the big market teams: Yankees, Mets, Dodgers. The Giants did, the Mariners did, the Blue Jays did. So there's the Cardinals did. So these are all teams in the playoff chase this year. Now, if you're looking at those division odds, like look, the Blue Jays aren't going to catch the Yankees with or without Juan Soto. They're just too far behind. The Mariners are not going to catch the Astros, too far behind. But if he goes to the Mets, that changes my opinion on whether to bet the Braves, because I think that division is, neck and neck right now anyway. You add Juan Soto to the Mets, all of a sudden, to me, that makes them the favorite, Spencer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what I'm thinking with Soto is, you mentioned the 2 years of team control. I'm thinking the Nationals hold on to him. I know he rejected their offer, and so I think they'll be shopping him, but I don't think they're going to get quite enough to move him. I mean, you can make a case he's the best young hitter in baseball, and I feel you're going to want to get a huge haul. I'm not sure if these contenders are going to want to. I mean, they'll have plenty of prospects, but the Nationals are probably going to want a couple of major league ready guys as well, I would think. So it's like, I just don't think they're going to get quite what they're looking for to move him this trade deadline. I mean, it'd be spicy. I kind of hope it happens, but I don't think it will, honestly. I think he stays put in Washington and either gets traded this coming off season or next year's deadline.
No, it will be fascinating to follow. Jim, the Cubs? Yeah?
Sign him. I mean, all joking aside, why not? I mean, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, if you think you have a potential to sign a guy like that long term, I mean, the Cubs have, for the first time in a while, they have they're pretty deep in the minors. They have some talent coming up. So, I mean, maybe they can make a move. I don't know, but they certainly have the money because they haven't spent any in a while.
They also have young major league talent.
Yeah,
if that's what the Nationals want in return, is guys who are still under team control for 4 or 5 more years. Yep. And are cheap and have proven that they can play at the major league level. So that's interesting. Nick asked about the 3M Open. Speaking of interesting things, tell Tony Finau to slow down out there, Nick. Sung Jae Im tied for the lead with. Who's he tied for the lead with? Scott Piercy, whoever that is. So that's what's going on in the world of golf. Lastly, as we continue our baseball second half preview, just wanted to look at the MVP odds. The race that's going to get the most publicity, and rightfully so, is Shohei Ohtani against Aaron Judge. Where do you come down? If Aaron Judge hits 60 homers, but Shohei Ohtani hits 40 and also strikes out 200 guys, like what a fascinating MVP race that is. And then in the other league, Paul Goldschmidt is the favorite at this point, but there's a lot of guys lurking between Manny Machado, Pete Alonso.
Go, Nolan, go. Nolan Arenado, baby. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, he still could do it. Definitely, I kind of feel the same way from a couple weeks ago. Do not bet Paul Goldschmidt. You know, as a Cardinals fan, I'm just telling you now, don't bet Paul Goldschmidt. I don't think I hope he keeps it up, but I really don't see his second half matching his first half. So I feel like there's just no value there. I would not touch it. You know, Arenado, Machado, they've got a lot of other guys that I think could come in and swoop it up. And as far as the AL, I'll tell you what, everyone's talking about Judge, but Giancarlo Stanton's quietly hitting a ton of bombs there too for the Yankees. And I'm thinking that in the second half that maybe Stanton's the one. I don't know if an MVP because his batting average in there, but for to lead the league in home runs, I think Stanton right now offers a lot of value.
And Giancarlo Stanton right now to lead the league in homers is 30-1. He's got quite a ways to go. But
what are
you can
Patrick Wisdom's numbers
to lead the league in homers
to win the MVP?
Hold on, I'm going to have to scroll down here for a little while.
Yeah, that'd be like the Kevin Malone if it's 5,000-1. You know, might have to take.
All right, Seiya Suzuki.
Spencer, I'm sorry, Devin. You've written quite a bit on the MVP race. Shohei Ohtani versus Aaron Judge, totally fascinating. Who do you give the edge to at this point?
I gotta give it to Ohtani. He's somehow outdoing himself like he did last year, and you know, really after that performance right before the All-Star break. I mean, you know, what did he strike out? Was it 10 guys, and then had like a 2-run or a 3-run triple or something like that. But yeah, I gotta give it to Ohtani. I just think right now he's doing something we haven't seen in a long time. And you know, while Aaron Judge may get hot again, I mean, Ohtani's doing it, you know, both defensively and hitting the bat. So I would give the edge to Ohtani.
All right, that is our show for today at the book for Thursday, July 21st. Talked a lot of NFL. We also did a second half Major League Baseball preview. Want some final thoughts? Jim, we're going to start with you. I know you've got the season premiere of Datitude coming tomorrow.
Yeah, we're excited to get Datitude back rolling. It's going to be an interesting show. We talked a lot about Adam Chernoff. He's going to be on the show to not necessarily talk about teams per se, but how to think about how to go about betting futures, because really the next few weeks is really when you want to get those futures bets in before the odds really start changing. They won't change much until the preseason gets going and we get closer to the season. So the odds you see now are pretty much the odds you're going to see the next few weeks, and he'll talk about that. We're also going to have Larry Holder of The Athletic on, my old partner from the Times-Picayune back in the day. We used to do shows together, and he did a show with Jeff Duncan, obviously, for quite a few years. And so Larry's going to come on the show. He is now not just a Saints writer; he is a NFL/Saints beat writer. So he covers the league. We're going to probably talk a lot about the NFC East and what we've done so far, and get his thoughts on that, and maybe look ahead a little bit and get his thoughts on what we might see early in training camp from the Saints as our guys get back in town and we get back into the swing of football and Datitude. And also, my last note here, I want to say to Devin, what a joy and pleasure. I mean, we didn't know each other before August, and you know, it's me being part of a new crew. I didn't know what to expect. I've been on my own the past couple of years before this and doing my own thing, and really without much of a team around me. And you guys are great and almost like family to me now. And Devin, I'm super thrilled for you, but selfishly, I'm so sad to see you go, because you have been a perfect addition to this team and become a pretty good friend. So I wish you nothing but the best of luck in the future, and you will certainly be missed.
Well said. Well said. I have a strategy here. We're ending with Devin. So Spencer, you go ahead with your final thoughts.
All right. Yeah, I was just want to say something I've been looking at is like props, like yardage props, and then who's going to lead the league in yards or receiving yards. There's some really good values up there. I feel like right now, Stephon Diggs 18-1, and Justin Jefferson. I know he's the favorite, but I think it's like 7 or 8-1. I feel like that's value for both of those guys. So just keep an eye on that, because I feel like it's one of those things. Like if you bet it now, you'll probably get better value than if you wait. And then I'm also going to start looking at, the yard, like the over under on the yard, like rushing yards, passing yards, receiving yards. So I'm excited to really get going with that, because I'm being a fantasy analyst, I'm always looking at the yards, touchdowns, projections, all that. So I'll definitely want to see what kind of values can be had there. And then, yeah, man, Devin, bro, gonna miss you, bro. It's been great working with you, and taught me a lot about like the headline side of things and all that, trying to get better with all that. But yeah, man, gonna miss having you, and you're welcome back to come on. I know you came on me on the podcast a couple months ago about the draft. So once I get that thing back launched, man, you're welcome back anytime, man.
Yeah, I'll go next just so we can end with Devin. I raise a glass to him as well. And by the way, what Spencer just said, we are going to do a lot more with fantasy and how it connects to prop bets this year, because there is absolutely a connection there. And even if you're playing season long fantasy, yes, there's money to be made. It takes a while. Obviously, it's more for the fun of it and following it all season. DFS, as we've talked about in golf, it's the same way in football. It's a slog, man. You have to win big every now and then. And if you don't, it can be very difficult to turn a profit there. But you can turn some of that knowledge into prop bets where you can make money every week. And so we're going to be talking a lot about that throughout this football season. So keep an eye on that. And we have stuff every day this preseason, whether it be on a prop bet, whether it be on receiving leaders, and obviously Jim's series on every team. I'm doing college football conference previews. So just encourage you to check out the site each and every day this football preseason, bet.NOLA.com. And to Devin, man, look, Devin, I don't know. People don't know. We'll take you behind where the sausage is made just a little bit. Devin actually belongs technically to a different department than we do, the way that things are structured at the Advocate and NOLA.com. But it never felt like that. And that's a credit to Devin, because I think he has given his all to this department. He's made us better. And we hope he goes on to bigger and better things with fond memories of us. And hopefully we'll be checking in. We'll be checking in down the road with you too, maybe as a guest. So go ahead, Devin, take us home.
Yeah, I appreciate all you guys' words. Just being able to be a part of this team, and like you said, taking behind the curtain. Before I joined the team, I really didn't know a ton about betting. I just knew kind of the basics of it and understood, lines and pretty simple things that most people would. But really learning from you, Jim, Zach, Spencer as well, especially like NASCAR and fantasy football. I've been able to learn a little bit of everything from each of you. So I want to thank you guys for helping me grow as I don't even know what you call this position anymore, but grow as a better. I'll say that. But I appreciate you guys and what you've been able to do for me, because I came as someone just a avid sports fan, and going through the fall and being able to take part in the best bets every week for football games, and continuing to parlay that into being a part of the launch of mobile betting and sports betting in person as well. It's been an honor. So just want to thank you guys for letting me do this. Was originally supposed to just be a producer, but you guys made me a part of the team, and I always appreciate that. So anytime you guys are in need of a guest or in pinch of a guest, you know where to find me.
By the way, we were going to offer Devin for Juan Soto, and the Nationals said no, but he left on his own anyway. So that's just the way it worked out. Hey, Jerry, how are you? Just in time to say goodbye to Devin. So everybody join us in saying goodbye to Devin Jackson. You will see his byline on bet.nola.com for another week or two, just stuff that he's written in advance. But other than that, it's time to say goodbye. So we say farewell, and we say good day to all of you. And at 4 p.m. Monday, we'll be back with Bayou Bets. Until then, for Spencer the Guru, for Jim, and especially for Devin Jackson, I'm Zach Ewing, and this has been At the Book.